are now called together, called by bell and bird, called by sun and moon, called by the beat of our hearts, to join again the living tradition we share, to answer again the call to harmonize with this earth. Today, with the bell ringing from Wat Tajampi in Sanpatong, Thailand, and the red-winged blackbird calling across North America, let us remember the sixth of our tradition's sources, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Kim Force. I am your hymn leader this morning. And just a word about group singing this morning. Anyone who sings up here unmasked, we test ourselves on Sunday mornings to confirm that we have a negative result on a rapid COVID so that we can be sure we are singing safely for you. And in that spirit, when we all raise our voices together in this room, we'll ask that you hum behind your masks to keep a safer environment for us all. So with that being said, I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our gathering song, which is number 361, and ask you to hum along with Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Thank you so much. Please be seated.
Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains, on land formerly of the Lenape Nation. I'm Emily Economo, your worship associate this morning. This is one of my favorites. It's a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone. It's the 13th and final Sunday of autumn. The cold moon was full last night and is now waning gibbous. The winter solstice will be here at 10:58 a.m. on Tuesday. Tuesday will be the shortest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. At White Plains latitude, we'll have 9 hours and 16 minutes of day and 14 hours and 44 minutes of night. Starting Wednesday, the days will be getting longer. Woohoo! On the Christian calendar, today is the fourth of the 4 Sundays of Advent, the time leading up to Christmas. In a traditional Advent wreath, the 4 candles represent hope, peace, joy, and love. And today is the Sunday you would be lighting the candle of love. A special welcome to our visitors. We're honored to have you with us. If you are a first-time visitor who is in our sanctuary, we invite you, if you feel comfortable, to stand or raise your hands so we may recognize you. Lots of good friends here. And if you are online, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. For those joining us virtually, you'll find a link in the order of service on our website at cucwp.org. Our website also offers information to keep us connected, as well as a donate button. We'll now have our chalice lighting. If you're joining us online, we invite you to light a chalice or candle at home as we light the chalice here.
Thank you, Emily. On the 13th and final Sunday of the season, we dedicate our chalice to the sixth source of the living tradition we share, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Please join me in the chalice lighting words from Griswold Williams in your order of service and on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant.
I read today from our UUA curriculum, Faith Like a River. William Ellery Channing was weary of having the epithet Unitarian flung at him in disdain. Ever since Henry Ware had been elected to the Hollis Professor of Divinity at Harvard College, the temperature of public debate between Orthodox and liberal factions of New England's standing order churches had risen. Many theological points were at issue. The turn to liberalism in New England's churches had begun with the Unitarian notion of the singular or unitary nature of God, antithetical to the Trinitarian understanding of God as three, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But soon the debate widened. Was God a benevolent and loving presence that wanted the best for all humanity, or, as in Calvinist orthodoxy, a wrathful and exacting God? The liberals called into question the orthodox idea of the elect, the notion that some are saved and others damned. Soon the controversy encompassed not only the nature of God, but also the nature of Jesus. Was Jesus fully divine, or fully human, or partly each? Religious people debated the question of human nature. Were humans good and capable of distinguishing right and wrong, as the liberals believed, or, as in the Orthodox view, were humans depraved and captive to sin? And reason, where did that fit in? The Orthodox insisted that the Bible alone was the valid basis for religious knowledge, while liberals maintained that the use of God-given reason and conscience was needed along with revelation. With Ware's election in 1805 to head Harvard College, the liberals had taken control of the primary training ground of New England's ministers. This caused great dismay among the more orthodox.
This is a slumber song, apparently for baby Jesus. It's from a collection of pieces Franz Liszt composed late in life and dedicated to his granddaughter. He called it Weihnachtsbaum, which is German for the Christmas tree.
Please join us for passing of the peace, which we have been doing in sign lately. Peace be with you.
Or if you're acknowledging someone, not the room, peace be with you. And then just share that together and also with you. So, yes, we're gonna have fun, right? So if you rise and share the peace with the viewers and sign language. Peace be with you. Yes.
Good morning. If you have a joy or sorrow or milestone you'd like to share, I invite you to enter it into the chat now if you're online. And here in person, we have the book on the table over there. If you're online, please make the first word be either joy, sorrow, or milestone so I can tell which messages are meant for me to read out loud. Our spoken invocation this morning is from Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. The ghost of Jacob Marley bemoaned, "No space of regrets can make amends for one life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I." "But you were always a good man of business, Jacob," faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. "Business," cried the ghost, wringing his hands again. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business." Amen.
Now, please join in our sung invocation. You'll hum along, but I'll sing it first in Español y entonces the second verse in English. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The mission of Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation is the covenant of this congregation. Would all the members and visitors who would like to affirm it along with me? We covenant to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world. The living tradition we share draws on spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Let there be an offering to sustain us and strengthen this place of celebration of the sacred circles of life. Let there be this time and the rhythm of the week of the ordinary and happy discipline of giving. Gratitude gives birth to generosity, and generosity gives birth to gratitude. And both of them grow in our lives through the rhythm of regular practice. For December, our Share the Plate funds go to the Coachman Family Center, a local shelter that provides housing and services to families experiencing homelessness. We are also appealing to our Minister's Discretionary Fund, which is especially in need of contributions at this time. You can make your contribution for the congregation, the plate share, your pledge, and the Minister's Discretionary Fund by placing your donation in the basket provided or by using the QR code on your paper order of service. Those watching online may use the QR code on the order of service email or the donate button on our website. What is given in gratitude is received in gratitude.
The Catalonia region of Spain, there is a tradition that their creches or nativity scenes contain a touch of realism by depicting animal dung. So I have no idea whether the Catalan composer Federico Monpó had that in mind when he wrote a set of piano pieces called Creche, but this is the first of those 3 pieces.
Words of prayer from Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Rebecca Parker. We remember the Magi, observers of stars, evidence-based seekers who found their way to kneel before a baby. May we too kneel before life's intricate mysteries, following the path of science-based searchers for truth. We remember Mary, birth mother of a revolutionary prophet. The fetus in her womb was a surprise. Her choice, a decision to magnify her hope. The birth difficult, attended by a beautiful diversity of animals and a ragtag gathering of vulnerable people. May we too kneel at the cradle of Earth's dream for peace, and dedicate ourselves to revolutionary love. We remember Joseph, unexpectant father who embraced the baby as his own, believing that every child has a God-given entitlement to love and care. May we too stand by the women and children of this world when patriarchal privilege and power threaten their freedom and put their well-being at risk. We remember the angels singing in a cold night to the overtaxed poor, promising peace and goodwill to all. May we echo their song in acts of solidarity and justice for all souls, refugee souls, disabled souls, Black souls, young souls, transgender souls. May we join the bold, holy movement to bring heaven to earth. May the morning star brighten our hope for a new day, and may laughter strengthen all our prayers. Amen. We ask of ourselves the mindful intention to delight in what is good, to confront what is cruel, to heal what is broken. And let us observe now a moment of silence, followed by musical meditation, and then sing along with the sung response.
All I can, I'll share with you. Your joy and your sorrow, I'll make it mine.
From Norman Fisher's Training in Compassion, training number 4 is Don't Get Stuck on Peace. When you practice training number 2, see everything as a dream. Or training number 3, examine the nature of awareness. And some of the other practices, life gets rather dreamy and abstract, as you will have noticed if you have been working with those practices. These practices are pleasant and reveal to you some important truths, but every truth, no matter how important, can also become something you get stuck on. Life is perpetually dynamic. Every truth eventually encounters the limits of its usefulness. Seeing clearly that what is naively taken for reality is an illusory dream, and that there is no self at the center of that illusion. These are crucial steps, but not the last step. The empty, dreamlike nature of everything becomes just one more concept, and soon that concept, like any concept, will trip you up. Forget about how great it is to be nobody, because that's just another excuse. Don't let these slogans become a belief system. Hold them lightly. Don't think you have understood them. They are just devices. For the full post on Don't Get Stuck on Peace, see cucmatters.org. The link is in your eCommunitarian.
Good morning. This is the month when many congregations would hold a Christmas or holiday pageant. You'll remember the days of props lined up for you to use during the pageant as you played one of the roles. There were multiple Marys, angels, shepherds, barnyard animals, wise folk, and more. And in the 2019 pageant, we traveled through time in a TARDIS for the solstice, Hanukkah, and the Nativity. And if I'm remembering correctly to the before times, there were often lightsabers in your pageant. We, like others, are not holding a pageant this year, since many of our children are still in the process of getting vaccinated, and our youngest can't get vaccinated yet. With or without a pageant, we know the story of the Nativity. I've heard it told countless times in countless ways over the years. The telling of the story is so familiar. A young couple travels a distance to register for the census. Along the way, they look for lodging and are turned away again and again with no room in the inn. Needing a warm place to rest, especially since the young woman was heavily pregnant, they end up in a stable, surrounded by farm animals, but otherwise alone. The child is born in that austere, cold place, laid in a manger, a trough where animals would eat. The lesson for humanity is to care for each other, to welcome in the stranger in need, even to practice what we call radical hospitality. The familiarity of the story is comforting. And I always wondered if there was more to it or other ways to see it. What if there were different tellings of the story and other lessons to carry into our lives? 10 years ago in UU World magazine, Meg Barnhouse wrote about Bethlehem's hospitality at the time of Jesus' birth from the perspective of Middle Eastern culture. She had been reading Kenneth Bailey's work that highlights the cultural context of the story and reveals nuances I hadn't learned before. The retelling begins by noting that hospitality is so valued in Palestinian culture that for Joseph and Mary to have been turned away as they sought lodging, to not even stay with family, would have been unthinkable and brought shame to the whole town. The original word translated as inn, kataluma, actually means a guest space in a common village home, not a commercial inn. Meg calls on scholars of Middle Eastern religious studies and Arabic language to explain that in the homes in Palestinian villages at the time of King David, there were typically 2 rooms, one for family and one for guests. The family room had a sunken area where their donkey, cow, and a couple sheep might come in to spend the nights. In this telling of the story, there wasn't space in the guest room, so the baby was laid in a manger in the family room and would have been surrounded by the warmth of family and animals. In our traditional telling of the story, the divine was originally unwelcome and turned away, and we are reminded not to be selfish or uncaring. Meg suggests that shame and other human failings have no role in the Palestinian telling of the story. Rather, the message is that the divine comes to birth when you have finally found your people and feel welcome. Among family, friends, and animals where it is warm, noisy, and crowded, the divine comes to birth. There is no shame or scolding or focus on human failure. Finding our people and feeling welcome calls forth the divine. Like Meg, I like the story with less shame in it, with less loneliness surrounding the light at its birth. This is a story of hospitality and warmth and welcome. And Meg invites us to wonder with her, what changes might ripple out from this telling of the story?
I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our first of 3 carols this morning. And for this first one, you get to hum in Latin. Number 253, O come all ye faithful.
Adeste fideles, leti triumphantes, venite, venite in Bethlehem. Natum videte, regem angelorum, venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus Dominum. O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus Dominum. Lo, humble shepherds, hasting to his cradle, leaving their flocks in the fields, draw near. We too with gladness thither bend our footsteps. Venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus Dominum. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Oh, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, all glory in the highest. Venite adoremus, venite adoremus, venite adoremus
Please be seated.
Charles Dickens was born in 1812. His 210th birthday is coming up in February. He was a Unitarian. In saying that, let me acknowledge that he was baptized and reared in the Church of England and was a nominal Anglican for most of his life. Nevertheless, in his 30s, he turned to Unitarianism as a broad church alternative. He associated with Unitarians until the end of his life. The man was averse to evangelical zeal, doctrinal disputation, and sectarianism, nor did he like high church Anglicanism. When he was 17 and on through his 20s, Dickens worked as a reporter, and this brought him into association with contributors to radical journals such as William Johnson Fox, a Unitarian minister, and John Forster, a Unitarian who became a lifelong friend. Forster would become Dickens's literary executor and his biographer. In 1842, Dickens made a trip to America. He hoped to find in the United States progressive religious bodies free from state control. He was disappointed with most American churches, yet he returned home full of enthusiasm for New England Unitarians in general and William Ellery Channing in particular. He then began attending services at Essex Street Chapel in London, the church founded by Theophilus Lindsay and Britain's first Unitarian church. Later, Dickens took a pew in the Little Portland Street Chapel. Dickens and the chapel's minister, Unitarian Edward Taggart, were friends for 16 years until the minister's death. Dickens wrote that Taggart had that religion which was sympathy for men of every creed and ventures to pass judgment on none. In other words, 19th century English ministers sounded a lot like Unitarians still sound. Dickens wrote in a letter that I have carried into effect an old idea of mine and joined the Unitarians, who would do something for human improvement if they could and practice charity and toleration. So it's fair to say he was a Unitarian. What we know of his religious beliefs matched those of most 19th century British Unitarians. He urged a liberal, tolerant, and non-sectarian interpretation of Christianity. He summarized his faith as to do good always. He preached the gospel of the second chance. The world would be a better place if, with a change of heart, people were to treat others with kindness and generosity, he said. His life's work was dedicated to social reform. His novels made people aware of poverty, exploitation, cruelty, and helped open readers' eyes to the humanity of the poor and the inhumanity to which they were subjected. Unitarians certainly have no monopoly on working for social justice, but Dickens's conviction that faith must be lived, and that faith must call us to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, and to change the systems that create poverty, hunger, and homelessness. Those were typically Unitarian convictions in his time and in ours. Dickens was born into a middle-class family that took a downward turn. Dickens's father was thrown into debtor's prison, and young Charles, age 12, had to go to work in a dirty, rat-infested shoe blacking factory. He was sensitized to the lot of poor children for the rest of his life. As the year 1843 began, Dickens was then 38 years old, and he had already published The Pickwick Papers, Nicholas Nickleby, Oliver Twist, The Old Curiosity Shop, and Barnaby Rudge. Martin Chuzzlewit was in the midst of being published in monthly installments over 2 years. Early in that year, 1843, Dickens toured the Cornish tin mines, where he saw child laborers working in appalling conditions. In February 1843, Parliament issued a report of the Children's Employment Commission exposing effects of the Industrial Revolution on working class children. Dickens read it, and the horror of what he read built upon the horror of what he's seen, which built upon the horror of what he himself had endured as a child. He planned to write a political pamphlet appealing to the people of England on behalf of poor children, but then he came to see that the most effective way to reach the broadest segment of the population with his social concerns about poverty and injustice was to write a deeply felt Christmas narrative rather than polemical pamphlets and essays. And so in October 1843, he began work on A Christmas Carol. Working at it feverishly, he finished it in 6 weeks. The final pages came in early December, and it was published on December 19th. Dickens's biographer, Michael Slater, writes that A Christmas Carol intended to open its readers' hearts toward those struggling to survive on the lower rungs of the economic ladder, and to encourage practical benevolence, but also to warn of the terrible danger to society created by the toleration of widespread ignorance and actual want among the poor. The first edition sold out by Christmas Eve. Within a year, 13 editions were released. In 1849, he began public readings of the story, which proved so successful that he undertook a total of 128 performances. In the process, the novella he had written reinvented Christmas. It didn't do so all by itself. Christmas had been morphing one way or another for centuries. In the 16th and 17th century in England, Christmas celebrations were getting pretty wild. It was like carnival, with role inversion, heavy drinking, and sexual liberties. The Puritans were horrified by this. They associated Christmas celebrations with paganism and idolatry, and they didn't want any of that going on. So Christmas festivities under the Puritans were illegal, and even where not illegal were taboo. England itself under Cromwell during that 11-year interregnum, 1649 to 1660, passed laws suppressing Christmas celebration. Those laws were repealed by the end of that century. As Dickens was penning A Christmas Carol, the pendulum was already swinging back toward Christmas merriment. Victorian England was in a period of reevaluating its Christmas traditions. Christmas cards were just beginning to be a thing. The Christmas tree, a tradition from Germany, was popularized by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Christmas carol singing, which declined in popularity through the 18th century, was by the early 19th century seeing a revival. The picture of Christmas as a time of family gatherings, seasonal food and drink, dancing, games, and a festive generosity of spirit was in 1843 England a picture some families experienced. The popularity of Dickens's Christmas Carol made that picture into a nearly universal expectation for Christmas. The modern observance of Christmas in English-speaking countries is largely the result of a mid-Victorian revival of the holiday, and that revival was spearheaded by A Christmas Carol. Dickens's novella was regarded as a new gospel. Reviewers noted that the book was unique in that it actually made people behave better, like an angel heard on high.
I invite you to rise and body your spirit for our next carol, and to hum along with me for angels we have heard on high.
joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why these songs of happy cheer? What great brightness did you see? What glad tidings did you hear? Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. See him in a manger laid, whom the angels praise above. Mary, Joseph, lend your aid, while we raise our hearts in love. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
Early on in A Christmas Carol, when Scrooge has the encounter with Marley's ghost, Scrooge asks the ghost, "Why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me?" And Marley replies, "It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so in death." The moral is clear. We must walk abroad among each other. We must go forth with our lives and not hole up by our lonesomes. We are given this one brief lifespan, and we must spend it sharing of ourselves, entering into relationships, being a part of other people's lives and having them be a part of ours. We must go forth. Life calls us to go forth. Though, as Tracy's reflection indicated, we may also go forth by staying home and extending hospitality to travelers who come to us. Hospitality, too, is a going forth, a wholehearted sharing of ourselves with others. And this, too, is the spirit of Christmas. In the mythology of the novella, if you don't connect in life, you'll have to roam about seeking connection after death. With this one brief lifespan we are given, we must become who we are. And that's a collaborative project of taking our shape through the interactions with others, the giving to and receiving from other people. With this one brief lifespan we are given, we must fashion a life, and that is a collaborative project. We create ourselves through our linkages with other people, linkages which set us free, or we are linked only to narrow material interests and are constrained. As Marley says, "I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. I girded it of my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it." Linked to narrow material interests, we are bound. As the saying goes, a person all wrapped up in themselves makes a mighty small package. A page later, Marley says the words that were used in today's invocation. "Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Linked to one another, we are liberated and expanded. The chain we make can tie us down or can be used to let others pull us up out of the pit of self-absorption. Marley's point might be put this way: what you don't share, you wear. Most of us are a mix. We are neither entirely like Scrooge at the beginning of the story, nor are we entirely like Scrooge at the end of the story. Scrooge's redemption is of interest to us because we are all partly like him. We have an inner Scrooge. There have been times we turned away instead of turning toward, and we too recognize we are in need of redemption. One of the newer adaptations of A Christmas Carol has Guy Pearce as Scrooge. It was first aired just a couple years ago, December 2019. With a runtime of 3 hours, it is twice as long as most film adaptations, so it's an expansion of the story and has a number of plot elements that are not in Dickens. The focus is on this redemption issue, and it is handled rather differently than Dickens handles it. Toward the end, this Scrooge, with the last ghost, the ghost of Christmas future, tells the spirit, well, actually, spirit, I don't care. I don't care what will become of me. I only care about one thing. And the viewer is at that point wondering what this one thing is. Can it still be money? This Scrooge is then transported to a graveyard where he looks down on a gravestone that says Ebenezer Scrooge. And as he gazes, a young man approaches and pees on the grave. Scrooge then says, "Bravo, bravo. I know my fate." And turning to the ghost of Christmas future, he says, "And you know my question. What happens to Tim Cratchit?" And then Scrooge looks around and not far away sees another gravestone bearing the name Timothy Cratchit, Tiny Tim. Scrooge slumps to the ground and sits leaning back against his own gravestone. He says, "Spirit, I need to know why. What was the reason for all of this? Why did you spirits come to me? Why did you show me all of this? What purpose?" And at that point, Marley's ghost reappears, something that doesn't happen at all in Dickens. And he says, "I'm not sure what the reason is, Ebenezer, but I know the purpose. It's all to do with redemption and our joint liability. All three spirits have done their work, and I asked them to let me have a final try. We were so wrong. Admit that at least." And this Scrooge says, no, I refuse. I refuse to change. All their efforts were for nothing because I refuse redemption. And Marley says, "What in God's name, Ebenezer, why?" And this Scrooge replies, "This fate, this piss-covered second-class grave is exactly what I deserve. And if redemption were to result in some kind of forgiveness, I do not want it, because I would find a way to justify everything I have done according to the consequence, because that's who I am. The only thing I want the spirits to do, the only change I want them to make, is to spare the life of him." And Scrooge is now pointing to Tiny Tim's grave. And we get it. Even redemption can be just one more self-centered concern.
This version depicts in more detail than Dickens does how Scrooge does have this habit of justifying himself and everything he does solely on the calculated consequences. This Scrooge now sees what a mistake that is, and he so wants to be rid of it that he refuses even redemption because he knows he would turn redemption into one more calculated consequence. But we, the viewers, also get the tension. Even as he renounces redemption, at that very moment, he's redeemed. There's a point there that is worth remembering, that even compassion can be turned into a strategy, one more self-centered concern. Yes, that is true. But you know, obsessing about how compassion can turn into a strategy is also a strategy. This new Scrooge's preoccupation with embracing the horrible fate that he's convinced he deserves also becomes rather self-absorbed. Just drop all that. Let the fates worry. Let the fates worry about what fate you deserve. You've got one job: love. Dickens's original showed us something that this new version hides, that everyone deserves joy and love, no matter how rotten they have been. With the universalist aspect of his Unitarian faith, Dickens understood that even Scrooge deserves salvation. Dickens's Scrooge is redeemed and implicitly grasps that it's okay to be redeemed. It's okay to accept a life of joyous loving, because redemption isn't about putting others ahead while accepting for yourself punishment you think you deserve. It's about recognizing that others are yourself and that we are all redeemed together, or none of us are. Scrooge needs to see that Scrooge too counts. As Tiny Tim said, God bless us, everyone. It's okay to be happy. Indeed, the world needs you to be. So I conclude with this from Dickens's Carol. I don't know what to do, cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath and making a perfect Laocoon of himself with his stockings. I am as light as a feather. I'm happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hello here. Whoop. Hello. To that, I say, amen.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing carol. There is no Latin in this one. So phew, you don't have to hum that. So this is Deck the Hall, number 235.
Deck the hall with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, fa la la
seated.
I am Alex Zedeva. I'm going to do the extinguishing of the chalice. Sorry I didn't introduce myself a little more before. I'm proud to serve on this year's Board of Trustees, so please feel welcome to reach out, say hello to me anytime, and voice any concerns that you may have. On with the extinguishing. As we extinguish our chalice here, we invite those of you on Zoom to extinguish your chalice at home. Please say with me the words on the screen. The circle of our worship has come around full. We have lit our chalice and now extinguish it. One circle within the sacred circles of life, one note within the harmony of life's rhythms. Thank you.
God bless us, everyone. Go in peace.
Ding dong, merrily on high, in heaven the bells are ringing. Ding dong, merrily the sky is ringing with angels singing. Ding dong, ding dong, Gloria, Hosanna in excelsis. Ding dong, merrily on high, in heaven the bells are ringing. Ding dong, merrily in the sky is ringing with angels singing. Glory, Hosanna, sing glory, Hosanna, glory, Hosanna, Hosanna in excelsis.